Hello and welcome back to your Part 3 ACCA SBL September 2024 tutor analysis video. My name is James and I'm going to take you through all of my keynotes now, and if you'd like to access them yourself, be sure to click the link down in the description of this video and you can add your own notes along with mine. They're definitely going to help you to pass and are going to save you so much time on there. Another way to help you pass your SBL exam is by doing mock papers, and I'm delighted to say that I'm associated with Astranti. You can access their mock papers, a free debrief as well. You can also have a money back guarantee. I am affiliated with them, so if you were to click any of the links down below and purchase anything, it would be a small commission to myself, and that goes to supporting the YouTube channel. And as always, a massive, huge thank you for all the likes, subscribing. And to be honest with you, if you have any questions, just leave me a comment down below. I'm recording these over the weekend. I see all the comments, I reply to them all, and I can do some more videos for you as well. So be sure to keep in touch, and let me take you down to where we left off from part 2 now, which is all about the TNC customers, that transport network companies. So we're working on the basis this is an Uber/Grab based system as a company, and I'm going to leave you can read it through yourself. I'm just going to take you through my keynotes and points on the side there. Think about it practically as to it's people who are exploring cities, going to work, shopping, different stakeholder groups who are actually going to use the CNC platforms on there that Beago and Zenby use. Now this is where I think there are going to be things that could come up on your exam, but you've got to be aware of on there. When a customer buys their travel to use, they either do it by their website or on the mobile. So there is no cash involved on there, first of all. But you've got to be thinking, well, what if the app crashed? What if they leak customer information? And they love to throw in the SBL exam on the day, a sort of news article, press release, social media post, something happens. So again, pop it down in your notes on there. Data-wise, they've got names, addresses, bank details. That is where it could be a massive impact on the company's brand and reputation, loss of revenue, but could also be thrown in as an ethics question as well, depending on what we were given on there. So linking to objectivity, integrity, and have we demonstrated professional behaviour. We've also got the range of services we can talk about later on as well on there, so it depends on what a customer actually wants. But the bottom line is their personal data, their pickup location, where they're going to, are all on this app. And you think to yourself, I'm giving a lot of information away to these companies on there. They will probably know where I live, where I work, and they have these apps where the data will be stored. And a positive on there, a strength, is the digital integration of this. It's got everything from the vehicle model, the number on there, the ease. That is why customers will use the platform. However, one thing I think they may throw in on your exam as a sort of, did the student read the notes properly, is there are 2 apps on here. So the drivers have an app and the customers have an app, different interfaces on there, but it's just so that when you're answering the question, be careful to be specific to, is the app involving the drivers or is the app involving the customers on there? In terms of the customer's app itself, again, they're going to have the customer's bank details, credit card on there. Payments are taken automatically, so again, no cash. It's very good from a tax perspective for the government because it gets registered straight away. But there is a fraud risk in terms of information on Beago system that is operated by a third party, cloud-based as well, for further data, that if there was a breach there, that could again link to a sort of technology point in a pestle analysis. The drivers themselves, we have the website and the driver's app, but an opportunity from a SWOT analysis perspective is we're not given any indication of any loyalty program to retain customers on there. We've got the main competitor of Zenby, but Beago's actually got to be thinking, how do we retain our drivers and retain our customers? And maybe a loyalty program could be a recommendation you could use in your analysis and evaluation. There are barriers to supply drivers as well, because the drivers must choose the city they may want to drive in on there. And remember, those local authorities we talked about in the previous recording set the criteria for the operating licenses. And maybe with Zemby being international and Beago just being Beelan based, this is where they may have an opportunity here, and that local expertise, Beago, that is why their market share has been increasing and Zemby's has been going down, because Zemby's management and director team and board of directors are thinking internationally, whereas Beago are just focusing on the Beelan market and is one of their positive strengths on there. Sounds like a robust process, as you can see from my notes. Checks to increase the sort of safety aspects. You've got the recent photos. The drivers have got to be put up to a certain standard. But then it comes down to, if you've got to go through, obviously it's great and everything to have background checks and medical records and the quality of the car. But this is the supply of drivers is so rigorous that could actually put drivers off from actually applying, and you may lose them to competitors. It's a barrier to becoming a driver. And it doesn't say if Zemby or Beago actually have any sort of leasing facilities for their drivers. So this is quite an important point there in the top left-hand corner, where we're talking about the barrier to becoming a driver. And you've got two options for a driver. You can either have the car yourself, which again has to be fully insured, kept up to a certain specification on there, and then you've got to say to yourself, the other option is having a leased vehicle. So the leased vehicle will, because it's leased and you go through a third party, will already be to that standard. But we're not told if Zemby and Beago offer that as a perk out to some of their actual drivers already. And what we have on there as well, just to not so we don't miss it out, the background checks of these drivers are normally carried out by a third party expert provider. Now again, we're not told who that expert provider actually is. So again, worth noting down in your notes to say, if it came up on the exam day, something about the integrity of the drivers, maybe there was some issue, investigating that third party expert would be a note that the marker would definitely be very pleased to see from you on there. Lastly, we are also given some areas that drivers do not set their own prices. The TNC platforms itself pay drivers between 75% to 85%. There's a standard sort of rate and charge per kilometre on there, and it's all sort of set out in the app itself. And there are lots of points on here as to who actually sets that percentage. How come it's 75% and or 85%? Because these drivers are working in what is known as the gig economy, freelance work, short-term contracts on there. They are not, remember, they are not employees of Beago for the company itself. So you've got trade union risks here and ethical risks that maybe some of the drivers could get some cash in hand clients, something on those lines, or the drivers may actually want rights as an employee, which we've seen through Uber as it went through the courts in the UK, which some drivers actually won. They were deemed to be employees on there. And what does that mean? Well, you can see on the last paragraph on there, they're independent contractors. That is such an important phrase for you to get down to talk about the drivers itself. It shows that you understand they are not employees, because if they were employees, they'd get things like sick pay, annual leave on there, and Beago would have to make national insurance contributions. The positives, however, are that they actually get to choose their own working hours. So why would someone want to be a driver? Well, maybe you're a student, you're a retired person, you just want to do it here and there. So there are positives to the system. There are benefits that some people just don't want to work more hours than others on there. For anyone who maybe hasn't used Uber or hasn't used Grab, they have the ride hailing and rides actual process on there. Again, it's what you would expect. You order it through the app and then the car comes and it takes you to where it goes. Just be careful that you know specifically between the customer and driver apps, as we've talked about, and it's the same process. It's just making sure that you're familiar with it, and so that when it comes on the exam day, you're not just going to yourself, oh, what's going on here? I'm not quite sure. We'll come on to the industry challenges now on here, where we've got perhaps more detail will be provided on the exam day for the Beeland economy itself, but this is where we get into SWOT analysis, opportunities, the economy factors in the pestle theory now, the E on there. So this is where, from a customer perspective, they are going to be using the vehicles, using the services, if the economic factors are good. And they've put it in on here as to, well, slowing down the economy, recession, increasing on fuel costs, which are then going to be passed on to the customers themselves. And these factors I've got on there, make sure you've got those down for your notes, that if there's any hint of customer spending power and confidence going down, that will actually hinder the revenues and earnings of companies like Beago on there. And why is that important? You can see on my notes, it's one of the measurements we had in the introduction in part 1 of my analysis, that Beago is measured as the second largest provider in Beeland on there. The growth of the businesses, again, it's to attract and retain qualified drivers. So that's a massive key note to get down there. The supply and demand effects, that if you haven't got enough drivers operating for you, passing all those screening tests and operating in sufficient hours, then that is going to be a massive weakness to your business, again, from a SWOT analysis perspective. Coming up to the top now, other factors to consider are that if some drivers aren't pleased with the way that Beago are operating, and we're given more information on that, again, in the KPIs later on, the driver satisfaction has been going down and down and down year on year, but they could go to Zenbi or other competitors on there. So again, SWOT analysis, potential threats, potential weaknesses, and maintaining and growing the necessary pool of drivers is a massive challenge on there. So again, linking to pestle analysis, SWOT as well, that is where these are the factors and points that you've got to be applying in your answers. There are alternative modes of transport and will depend on economic conditions. Again, attracting new customers on there, wide variety of options. As I mentioned it before about a sort of opportunity of a loyalty scheme. This is where we should expect some change or an issue on the exam day. One key thing for you to get down from this video is the customer preferences, the appeal to new customers. Things will go right and things will go wrong on your exam day in the requirements that are set. And you've got to pivot on that, applying the pre-seen information and linking to some of the other areas you can see on the side there from a pestle theory analysis, where from a safety point of view, it's a major challenge. There are sort of illegal activities going on, both between customers and drivers on there. So you've got the technology factor, how the apps are actually being used. And well, we have on here, such conduct has exposed TNCs to several high-profile lawsuits. So you've got the L factor on there from the legal factor, shall I say, from the pestle analysis that it could be thrown in. And from the business's point of view, that could lead to fines, loss of reputation on there. We're then given environmental impacts, again, the E part of the pestle theory, where the external factors, rising causes of congestion, air pollution. Governments want people out of their cars because it's a more and more pressing issue. And that's where you have clean air zones. Again, thinking about this from, say, if you've been to London before, if you go to certain central London areas, this is where you get a congestion charge fee put onto you. And it's a technology point on there as to, right, how would this work in terms of the apps itself? And then from those charges, if they were to be actually introduced on there and drivers were going into these designated zones, are the drivers liable to pay those actual fees, or is it going to be the companies themselves? Again, little things to consider on there. Last but not least, for this recording, we're just going to have a quick look at the latest developments. Absolutely imperative you get these down on here. Diversifying the revenue streams, food delivery, driverless and electric vehicles. This is where you get an Uber goes to the Uber Eats model on there. So Zenbi will have exposure to this with their global exposure. And in terms of developments, looking at new areas that they can develop their revenue. And you can order the food through their dedicated app on there. So this is happening in some countries. Zenbi's probably had some exposure to this. And it's all in one place on the platform on there. Again, for complete convenience, and can be another revenue stream that Beago could be looking at. We also have driverless or automated cars. Again, Zenby and other competitors may be using this, but at the moment you currently have to have a supervisor person in there. But if that started to take off, that is another threat aspect of the SWOT analysis. But using the GPS factors, or if there was a crash involved, there could be legal issues from a pestle point of view. And last but not least, the electric vehicles on here, most of the TNCs recognise their potential as a negative impact on the environment using all this sort of fuel. And on the app itself, it was on a previous point, Beago have actually introduced on their app, it's again a real positive for them from the environmental perspective, that you can actually select an electric vehicle for your journey. You can have a petrol, diesel powered one or an electric one on there. But these are different revenue streams that we could be looking at for Beago and to be tapping into the market, to taking more market share off Zenby, and also keeping up with the competition that we've looked at in previous recordings. I'll just put it up on here as we've just looked through those as well. I'll put my mouse on it. It's where that other market share is going up. These other companies are gaining market share, probably from either these new revenue streams or the services or business services, and that is one of the things that Beago have to be aware of as a potential threat that you could link in your SWOT analysis on there. And that takes us through part 3 now. Make sure you subscribe so that you can have access to all of the other videos on my channel. I'm going to put a few more up above me that you can click. And as well, guys, if you want access to my lovely notes so you don't have to do them, just click the link down below. Along with checking out Astranti's mock papers, would highly recommend. They are top notch. They're going to help you to get that edge to really put the notes what we've got on the screen here into practice. And I'll see you on the other side for part 4 now. So thank you very much.